Hello, everybody. This is Alyssa, aka Black Cat Mambo Productions. I am coming to you from a lovely, breezy evening in the late summer in the Ozarks, and it actually feels a lot more like an early autumn evening in the Ozarks. It's wonderful. I love it. My windows are open, candles are lit up above, incense going over there, and I have you here, so this is perfect. I wanted to read a little something to you tonight, and that being a little article out of the January-February 2002 issue of Fate magazine. Fate magazine has been around since the 1940s. I remember looking at copies of it my dad had. It used to be a little digest size. I think it is again. Looking at it when I was too young to even read, and seeing Bigfoot pictures and big giant cryptozoological birds and just UFOs and the whole thing got me started on the path of destruction in my interest into the paranormal. So this particular issue, Nessie on the front, nice, on page 66, which is quite fitting because it is my birthday. I often use that number when I set up accounts online or I need a chat name or whatnot. There's often a 66 in it. 6 being my favorite number. It has been my lucky number since I was a child, so it's double my lucky number. There is True Mystic Experiences, which is a column they've been running forever and ever and ever, and readers can send in the stuff they write. And here is a particular one called Madaline, or Madaline. I alternate how I say it. And on the other page, there's a photo of somebody we might know. Somebody you should know. Here, I'll give you a hint. Yes, it is I. I wrote up this whole account of this thing that happened to me, my true mystic experience. Wrote it up just for myself because I wanted to remember the details of it, and I have a horrible memory, and I knew the details would fade with time. So I wrote this up and decided just on a lark to send it in and see if they would publish it. I didn't think they would, but they published it immediately and sent me a check for $25. Which makes me, of course, now officially a professional writer, of course. And it's a wonderful story. I have quite a few ghost stories from my past, and this is one of my favorite ones. So allow me, if you will, to read it to you. They printed it word for word, except for one little bit where they kind of screwed it up and changed the meaning of the story. But when we get to that part, I will correct it. I was pleased. It's like 2 solid pages of my writing in a national, well, I think it goes all over the world, Llewellyn Publications magazine. Anyway, here we go. Madaline. In 1995, my grandmother had come to a point in her life where she could no longer care for herself and was in need of the kind of around-the-clock attention which the family simply could not provide. She was unhappy living with her only son and his wife and ended up spending many lonely, bitter hours alone. She asked my mother, sister, and myself to begin looking for a new place for her to live, somewhere that can meet her needs and provide her with a little companionship. Our researching led us to a place called the Rogers Townhouse, a large, rambling building in the heart of the old downtown area of the small city of Rogers, Arkansas. It had been built in the 1920s as one of the state's most grand hotels and was originally called the Palace of the Ozarks. Built in an ornate Spanish style, its lobby proudly displayed soaring, hand-carved, dark paneled walls and ceilings. It is decorated with prints of conquistadors, and many residents can be found in the afternoons napping in what I can only suppose must be the lobby's original, well-worn leather chairs. The building was old and somewhat derelict, but it was clean, sturdy, and all 3 of us experienced overwhelming feelings of comfort and sweetness while on the premises. The staff was easygoing and seemed to have a genuine love and concern for the 40 or so seniors who resided there, as well as true pride in the building itself. We reserved a large, sun-filled room for Granny on the 4th floor. The room was quite large, with enough space to divide it into both a bedroom and a living space. Beyond the living area was a small, doorless room containing a dressing table and chair, lit by a tall, narrow window that faced the street. We found the place to be so enchanting that my younger sister and I joked about wondering if they'd be willing to rent to non-seniors. The following day we arrived, my little Honda loaded down with the things we thought Granny would need to begin her life there. We dusted and rearranged the furniture, trying to keep in mind Granny's special needs. By mid-afternoon we had accomplished everything we came to do, and we were getting ready to make the 50-mile drive back to our homes when Mom decided to make one last quick trip to the bathroom. While we were waiting for her, my sister and I relaxed in the living area. While we were chatting away about what we hoped life would be like for Granny in these cheery new surroundings, I suddenly heard the voice of a young woman screaming out quite clearly, "Help me! Won't somebody please help me?" I was stunned, thinking for a moment that perhaps only I had heard it. My sister and I both stopped talking, first glancing in the direction of the dressing area, then at each other. I don't know what I looked like at that moment, but my sister had gone chalk white. I asked her if she had just heard something, and she said that she had indeed. I cautiously asked her, "What did it sound like to you?" She answered, "It sounded like someone saying, 'Help me, won't somebody please help me?'" "Mom, was that you?" I called out, knowing full well that it wasn't, because the voice sounded nothing like her. "No," she called back. "I thought maybe it was one of you girls." The three of us discussed it, and agreed that it did not sound quite right. It almost had the quality of a recorded voice, or maybe more like one heard over a poor telephone line. It was slightly distorted, but quite genuine and alarming nonetheless. We theorized that perhaps it had come from a TV set in the next room, but we all strongly felt that it had emanated from that one exact spot in the dressing room. We each went and took turns, holding our hands in and around the exact area from which we felt it had come. We left feeling more than a bit perplexed, and I personally experienced a great deal of sadness and a sense of helplessness, as if I was letting someone down by leaving and not having answered her pleas for help. The next time I was there, I decided to do a little investigative work and see if the next room was occupied. I stepped out of the elevator and found myself standing face to face with the room in question. This door was different from the others which lined the hallway. It had a large wooden number 4 on it instead of the usual smaller placket showing the room number. It had no doorknob and was lacking the keyhole for the old skeleton keys which were still being used throughout the building. I knew that the staff was busy helping with the evening meal, so I did something which was a bit uncharacteristic of me. I knocked timidly at the door, and after receiving no response, I slowly pushed it open. My body was tingling with anticipation and a bit of anxiety about what I was doing. The room was musty and pitch black. I found a switch and turned on the light. I quickly slipped into the room, fearing being discovered and labeled a snoop. I found myself in an odd and very creepy room, containing a shower stall and a set of swinging doors leading to another dark, dusty room, which seemed to be used as some sort of a storage space. The single bare bulb gave the room a particularly harsh and ghastly visage. The atmosphere was heavy, still, and disturbing. My skin crawled the whole time I was there. This was the only time I ever felt anything negative in that entire building. Being inside the room was making me so uneasy that I was beginning to get physically ill, so I switched off the light and beat a hasty retreat. I knew that whatever we had heard had not come from another resident's TV. It had somehow emanated from this bizarre abandoned room. Okay, I don't think that last line is right. I would have to get out my original manuscript and check it, because we know for a fact it did not come from that room. It did not. If it had been a TV, it would have to have been in that room, but there was nothing in that room but a lot of just junk, and this weird shower stall was actually like right on the other side of the room because um, it backed up against like the plumbing for my granny's bathroom. Um, what we heard came from her little dressing room. I mean, it was right there. We're all like, it came from here. It was just really obvious to us that it did not come from that other room, but I was trying to be objective and check out the options, okay? So, the next time I talked on the phone with my dad, I told him about our strange experience and I voiced concern for Granny's well-being. I could not help but wonder if this woman's pleas for help might be too much for an elderly person with a weak heart. Dad was fascinated by my story, but said that if my overall feelings about the place were good, then we should go ahead and move her right in. We never told Granny of our encounter. We saw no reason to frighten her and leave her jumping at every creak and bump in the night. One evening, when my father was enjoying a quiet visit, a woman came in to check Granny's blood pressure. While she was in the process of performing her duties, her pager sounded. Using the bedside phone, she called the front desk to see what they needed. After a brief conversation, she hung up and sighed. "I've got to go check on Mrs. Johnson," she said. "Oh, well, at least she's not hearing voices in her room again." This sparked something in my dad, and he remembered the story I had told him. Later, as he was leaving, he passed the same healthcare worker in the hallway. As tactfully as possible, he broached the subject and recounted our tale. Without hesitation, she told him, "Oh, yeah, that was Madaline. She's been here a long, long time. When the current owners bought this building, they were told that there was a ghost in residence and that her name was Madaline. She died here in some tragic way back when it was still a hotel." Dad tried to draw more information out of her on the topic, but she didn't seem to want to discuss it any further. I tend to be sensitive to the presence of spirits, and I have a feeling that Madaline does not haunt alone. I recall my meeting with Madaline with sadness and also honor. I think that perhaps in her only way that she knew, she had reached out to say hello and welcome us to her home. In the month that Granny lived there, Madaline never made another appearance. And I still don't know that was... Maybe I'm being too simplistic by saying it was her only way to say hello to us. She may have been looking for help. I don't know. But that's the story of Madaline. If you want a genuine Tushy Galore article, this is the place to get it. Although don't try to stalk me based on the name and the last name, because it's not really my last name. So that's all I have for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll try to come up with some new stuff for this account because I know a lot of you out there really dig it. So anyhow, ta-ta.